I'm Dr. Emily Carter, and what you're about to hear is a story that might sound uncomfortably familiar. When Lauren found herself checking her phone for the 47th time that morning, she didn't realize she was standing at the edge of a psychological cliff, but I did. Lauren Chin was 32 years old when she walked into my office. She was a marketing coordinator at a tech startup in Seattle. Her hands trembled as she sat down. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. She looked like someone who hadn't slept properly in months, and she hadn't. The first thing she said to me was this: "I think I'm going crazy. I can't stop checking if he's texted me back." I've heard variations of that sentence hundreds of times. But what Lauren didn't know yet was that she wasn't crazy. She was caught in one of the most psychologically damaging relationship patterns known to attachment theory: an anxious person paired with an avoidant partner. It's like mixing gasoline with fire.
Let me take you back to where it all started.
Lauren met Jake at a friend's wedding 18 months earlier. He was tall, charming, and had this easy confidence that drew people in. He was a software engineer, successful, independent. When he smiled at her across the dance floor, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: hope. Their first 3 months were magical. That's always how it goes. Jake texted her every morning. He planned elaborate dates. He told her she was different from anyone he'd ever met. Lauren felt like she'd finally found her person. But then, something shifted. It started small. Jake began taking longer to reply to her messages. Hours became days. When she asked if everything was okay, he'd say he was just busy with work. She believed him. She wanted to believe him. Then came the weekend plans that got canceled last minute, the conversations that felt distant, the way he'd pull away whenever she tried to get close, both physically and emotionally. Lauren's anxiety started creeping in like fog. She'd lie awake at night, analyzing every text message, every interaction. What did she do wrong? Why was he pulling away? Was there someone else? Here's what Lauren couldn't see yet. This wasn't about her at all. Jake had what we call a dismissive avoidant attachment style. It's a pattern that develops early in childhood, usually when a child learns that emotional needs won't be met consistently. These individuals grow up equating closeness with danger. Intimacy feels like suffocation, so they create distance to feel safe. Lauren, on the other hand, had an anxious attachment style. Her childhood taught her that love was conditional and unpredictable. She learned to hypervigilate for signs of rejection. Every small shift in a partner's behavior felt like an impending abandonment. When these two attachment styles collide, they create what psychologists call the anxious-avoidant trap, and it's absolutely devastating. Let me tell you about the day Lauren's world started to crumble. It was a Tuesday morning in March. She'd sent Jake a text the night before, just a simple "thinking of you" message. By morning, there was no reply. By noon, her chest felt tight. By 3 p.m., she'd convinced herself he was going to break up with her. She called him. It went to voicemail. She texted again. "Hey, is everything okay?" Nothing. Her coworkers noticed she couldn't focus. She kept refreshing her phone. Her heart was racing. She felt dizzy. She was having what's called an attachment panic response. Her nervous system was in full fight or flight mode. When Jake finally responded at 7 p.m., his message was brief. "Sorry, busy day. Talk later." That's it. 6 words. No explanation, no warmth, nothing. Lauren felt her stomach drop. She wanted to scream. She wanted to throw her phone across the room. Instead, she did what anxious partners always do. She blamed herself. Maybe I'm too needy. Maybe I'm texting too much. Maybe I should give him space. But here's the cruel irony. The more space she gave Jake, the more her anxiety grew. And the more anxious she became, the more Jake retreated. It was a vicious cycle feeding itself. If you're listening to this and your chest is getting tight, hit that like button. You're not alone in this. The pattern intensified over the next few months. Jake would disappear for days, then resurface like nothing happened. He'd be warm and affectionate for a weekend, then go cold again. Lauren was living on an emotional roller coaster, and she couldn't get off. Her friends started to worry. Her best friend, Maya, told her she'd lost weight, that she wasn't laughing anymore, that she seemed obsessed with Jake. "He's not treating you right," Maya said one evening over coffee.
Lauren defended him immediately. "You don't understand. He's just stressed with work. He's not good at expressing emotions." Classic. Lauren was doing what's called rationalization, making excuses for behavior that was hurting her, because admitting the truth felt too terrifying. If Jake wasn't right for her, what did that say about her judgment, about her worthiness of love? The breaking point came on a Friday night in July. Lauren and Jake had plans. Dinner at her favorite Italian restaurant. She'd been looking forward to it all week. She got dressed carefully. A blue dress Jake had once said he loved. She put on makeup, did her hair. She felt hopeful for the first time in weeks. 6 o'clock came and went. No text from Jake. She called him, voicemail. She texted, "Hey, still on for tonight?" No response. 7 o'clock, still nothing. Her anxiety was through the roof. She was shaking. She felt sick. At 7:30, Jake finally texted, "Sorry, something came up. Can we reschedule?" That was it. No explanation, no apology beyond the word sorry, no suggestion of when they could reschedule. Lauren sat on her couch in that blue dress and cried. Deep, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. Because in that moment, she finally understood something. This wasn't love. This was torture. But the story didn't end there. It got worse before it got better. Lauren did what her anxiety demanded. She called Jake. When he finally answered, his voice was distant, irritated even. "What's wrong?" Like her being upset was unreasonable. "You stood me up," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I didn't stand you up. I told you something came up. But what came up, and why didn't you tell me earlier?" There was a pause. Then Jake sighed. That sigh. It was loaded with annoyance and dismissal. "Lauren, I can't do this right now. You're being really intense." Those words hit her like a slap. Intense. She was intense. Her needs were too much. She was too much. "I just wanted to have dinner with my boyfriend," she said quietly. "And we will, just not tonight. I need some space, okay?" Space. That word again. Every time she tried to get close, he needed space. It was like trying to hug a ghost. They hung up. Lauren sat in silence, still in that blue dress, and something inside her broke. Not just her heart, her sense of self, her belief that she was worthy of consistent love. She couldn't eat. She couldn't sleep. For the next 3 days, she called in sick to work. She lay in bed, checking her phone obsessively. Jake didn't text, didn't call. It was like she'd ceased to exist in his world. This is what I call the protest behavior phase. When an anxiously attached person feels abandoned, they can become consumed with getting the other person's attention. It's not manipulation, it's survival mode. Their nervous system is literally screaming that they're in danger. On day 4, Lauren did something she'd never done before. She showed up at Jake's apartment unannounced. She knew it was crossing a line. She didn't care. She needed to know if they were okay, if she was okay. Jake opened the door in sweatpants and a t-shirt. Behind him, she could see his laptop open on the couch. He'd been home the whole time. Not busy, not dealing with an emergency, just home. "Lauren, what are you doing here?" He didn't invite her in. "I needed to see you. You haven't called, you haven't texted. I thought..." "You thought what? That something happened to me?" His voice had an edge to it. "I told you I needed space." "It's been 4 days, Jake. 4 days of silence. That's not space. That's disappearing." He crossed his arms. Defensive. Posture. Closed off. "I don't know what you want from me." And there it was. The central question. What did she want? She wanted him to care that she was hurting. She wanted him to see her, to choose her, to fight for them.
But Jake couldn't give her those things, not because he was a villain, but because his nervous system was wired differently. Closeness felt like pressure. Her emotional needs felt like demands. And his automatic response was to shut down and retreat. "I want you to care," Lauren said simply, tears running down her face. Jake looked uncomfortable. He always did when she cried. "I do care, but you're making this really hard, Lauren." Making it hard by wanting basic relationship things, communication, reliability, emotional presence.
That night, Lauren went home and did something she should have done months earlier. She called a therapist. She called me. When Lauren walked into my office that first day, she was a shell of herself. Her self-esteem was shattered. She was having daily panic attacks. She couldn't focus at work. She'd stopped seeing friends. Her entire world had shrunk down to one question: why doesn't he love me the way I love him? Before we go further, subscribe to hear more stories like this. You won't regret it. I asked Lauren to tell me about her relationship. As she talked, I took notes, not just about Jake, about her patterns, her responses, the way she described herself. She used words like needy, too much, crazy, clingy, all words that blamed her for the dynamic. None of those words were accurate. "Lauren," I said gently, "let me tell you what I'm seeing. You're not too much. You're with someone who can't meet you where you are." She looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. I explained attachment theory to her, how our early relationships shape our adult patterns, how anxious and avoidant styles interact, how neither style is wrong or broken, they're just different nervous system responses to intimacy. Jake isn't doing this to hurt you. His brain literally perceives closeness as a threat. When you reach for him, his instinct is to pull away. It's automatic. So what do I do? How do I make him feel safe? And there it was, the question every anxiously attached person asks. How do I fix this? How do I change myself to make them stay? The question isn't how to make Jake feel safe. The question is, are you safe in this relationship? Lauren went quiet. She'd never thought about it that way. She'd been so focused on keeping Jake from leaving that she hadn't asked if staying was good for her. Over the next few weeks, we worked together. I taught Lauren about her own attachment patterns, how her childhood had wired her to expect inconsistent love, how that made her hypervigilant in relationships. We talked about anxiety, how it manifests in the body, the racing heart, the tight chest, the obsessive thoughts. These weren't signs of weakness. They were her nervous system trying to protect her from abandonment. I gave her tools, grounding exercises when the anxiety spiked, ways to self-soothe instead of reaching for her phone, journaling prompts to process her feelings. But the hardest work was this: learning to set boundaries. Lauren had spent 18 months accommodating Jake's need for space. She shrunk herself, made herself smaller, demanded less, hoped that if she was just patient enough, understanding enough, he'd eventually feel safe enough to love her fully. But that's not how avoidant attachment works. The more she accommodated, the more Jake retreated, because there was no limit, no boundary, no point where she said, "This is what I need to feel secure." In one session, I asked her a question. "Lauren, if your best friend was in this relationship, what would you tell her?" She didn't hesitate. "I'd tell her to leave, that she deserves better." "And you don't?" Silent. Then tears, deep, cleansing tears, because she finally heard it. The double standard, the way she was treating herself. It took another month before Lauren was ready to have the conversation with Jake. The real conversation, not the anxious pleading version, the boundaried, clear version. She invited him over. Not his apartment, hers, her space, her terms. "Jake, I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me." He looked wary, defensive already, but she continued.
I've been in a lot of pain in this relationship. I felt invisible, unimportant. I know you need space, and I respect that. But I also need consistency. I need communication. I need to know that I matter. Jake started to speak. She held up her hand. I'm not finished. I've spent months trying to figure out what I'm doing wrong, trying to be less needy, less intense, less much. But I'm realizing something. I'm not too much. I'm just too much for you. His face changed, surprised, maybe hurt. Lauren, that's not fair, isn't it? You disappear for days. You cancel plans without explanation. You make me feel like wanting basic communication is asking too much. That's not a partnership, Jake. That's me constantly adjusting to your comfort level while mine doesn't matter. I can't be what you want me to be, he said quietly. And there it was, the truth they'd both been avoiding.
I know, Lauren said, and I can't keep shrinking myself to fit your comfort zone. So I think we need to end this. The words hung in the air. Jake looked shocked. Avoidant partners often are when the anxious partner finally leaves. They'd gotten used to the pursuing, the accommodating. They didn't expect boundaries. You're breaking up with me? He asked. I'm choosing myself, she replied. They didn't get back together. Jake tried, actually. 2 weeks later, he called. He missed her. He wanted to try again. He'd do better. But Lauren had learned something crucial in therapy. When an avoidant partner only comes back when they feel the loss, they're not coming back to be closer. They're coming back to reestablish the comfortable distance. She told him no. It was the hardest thing she'd ever done. Her anxiety screamed at her to say yes, to take him back, to have another chance. But she didn't, because she'd finally learned that real love doesn't require you to disappear. So what did Lauren learn? What does the research tell us about anxious-avoidant dynamics? First, understand that attachment styles aren't destiny. They're patterns, and patterns can change. Lauren worked with me for 6 more months, focusing on what's called earned secure attachment, learning to self-regulate, building self-worth that didn't depend on a partner's validation. We identified her triggers: delayed text responses, canceled plans, emotional distance. Instead of spiraling into panic, she learned to pause, to check in with herself, to ask, is this anxiety based on what's happening now or what happened in my past? She practiced something called opposite action. When her anxiety told her to text Jake 50 times, she did the opposite. She sat with the discomfort. She called a friend instead. She went for a run. She proved to her nervous system that she could survive without immediately reaching for reassurance. She also learned about intermittent reinforcement. This is a psychological principle that's absolutely crucial to understanding why anxious-avoidant relationships are so addictive. When someone gives you attention inconsistently, randomly switching between warmth and distance, your brain gets hooked. It's the same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. Jake's pattern of pulling close, then disappearing, then coming back, kept Lauren's anxiety constantly activated. She never knew which version of him she'd get. That unpredictability created an addiction-like response. She was always chasing the high of his attention. Understanding this helped Lauren see the relationship clearly for the first time. She wasn't weak or damaged for struggling. She was a normal human responding to an abnormal relationship pattern. According to the DSM-5 and attachment research, about 20% of adults have an anxious attachment style. 25% have an avoidance style. When these two types pair up, they create what's called a pursuit-distance dynamic. The more one chases, the more the other runs. It's exhausting for both people. The solution isn't to turn an anxious person into an avoidant one, or vice versa. It's to help each person move toward secure attachment. That means anxious individuals learning to self-soothe and trust. Avoidant individuals learning that intimacy is safe and necessary. But here's the hard truth. Both people have to want to change. Both have to do the work. And in Lauren's case, Jake wasn't ready.
Maybe he never would be. 6 months after their breakup, Lauren started dating again. This time, she was different. She had standards, boundaries. She didn't ignore red flags. She met someone new, Marcus, a teacher. He was consistent. He'd text back in reasonable time frames. When he said he'd call, he'd call. He didn't play games. And guess what? Lauren's anxiety was so much lower. She wasn't constantly checking her phone. She wasn't analyzing every word because Marcus's behavior was predictable and reliable. That's when Lauren understood something profound. Her anxiety wasn't the problem. The relationship was the problem. Put a fish in toxic water and it will struggle. Put that same fish in clean water and it will thrive. She wasn't broken. She was in a situation that activated her deepest fears. Now, I want to address something important. If you're in an anxious-avoidant relationship, this doesn't mean you're doomed. Some couples do the work and find a healthy balance, but it requires both people to be committed to change. For the anxious partner, that means building self-worth that doesn't depend on the other person, setting clear boundaries, learning to tolerate discomfort without immediately seeking reassurance, addressing childhood wounds that created the anxious pattern in the first place. For the avoidant partner, it means recognizing that emotional intimacy isn't dangerous, learning to stay present when things feel too close, communicating needs instead of just disappearing, working through the childhood experiences that taught them closeness equals loss of self. It's hard work, really hard, but it's possible. Today, Lauren is in a healthy relationship. She still has moments of anxiety. Old patterns don't just vanish, but now she has tools. She can recognize when her nervous system is reacting to old wounds versus real threats. She practices what I taught her. When anxiety spikes, she pauses, she breathes. She asks herself, what do I need right now? Sometimes it's reassurance from Marcus. Sometimes it's self-soothing. Sometimes it's just acknowledging the feeling and letting it pass. Marcus, for his part, learned about her attachment style. He understands that when she needs reassurance, it's not weakness, it's vulnerability, and he responds with consistency and care. Their relationship isn't perfect, no relationship is, but it's safe, it's respectful, it's reciprocal, and that makes all the difference. What would I want you to take away from Lauren's story? A few things. 1, your attachment style isn't your fault, but healing it is your responsibility. Childhood shapes us, but it doesn't have to define us. 2, if you're constantly anxious in a relationship, ask yourself if the relationship is making you anxious or if you'd be anxious in any relationship. There's a big difference. 3, real love doesn't require you to shrink. It doesn't demand that you ignore your needs to accommodate someone else's comfort. 4, the anxious-avoidant trap is real and devastating, but it can be broken. Sometimes that means leaving. Sometimes it means both people committing to change. Either way, it requires honesty and courage. 5, therapy works. Attachment patterns can shift. You can learn to feel secure, even if you didn't learn it in childhood. Lauren's journey wasn't easy. There were setbacks, days when she wanted to text Jake, nights when she doubted her decision, but she kept going. She kept working on herself. And here's what she learned. The relationship she really needed to fix wasn't with Jake. It was with herself. When Lauren first came to see me, she asked if she was crazy. The answer was no. She was just human, responding to a situation that activated every fear she had ever had about love and worthiness. Now, 18 months later, she sits in my office looking completely different. There's color in her cheeks, light in her eyes. She laughs easily. She tells me about her life, her goals, her relationship with Marcus. I can't believe I almost settled for that, she says, talking about Jake. I thought that was as good as it got. What do you know now? I ask. She thinks for a moment, then smiles. That I deserve someone who shows up, not someone I have to chase. Exactly. If you're struggling with anxiety in your relationships, please know this. You're not too much. You're not broken. You're not unlovable. You might just be with the wrong person, or you might need support to heal old wounds that keep you stuck in painful patterns. Either way, there is hope. Lauren in living proof. Real love doesn't feel like quicksand. It doesn't leave you constantly gasping for air. It feels like solid ground, like coming home, like being seen and celebrated, not tolerated. You deserve that. We all do. What's your biggest fear in relationships? Drop it in the comments below. Let's start a conversation about healing together. And if this story resonated with you, share it. Someone in your life might need to hear it. They might be where Lauren was, thinking they're crazy when they're actually just caught in an impossible dynamic. Remember, awareness is the first step. Understanding your patterns gives you power to change them, and change is always possible. Lauren thought she'd never feel secure in love. She thought her anxiety would always control her. She was wrong. And if you're relating to her story, you might be wrong too. There's hope, there's healing, and there's a version of you on the other side of this work who feels calm, confident, and worthy of consistent love. That version is waiting. You just have to be brave enough to do the work to meet them.